Welcome to episode 13 of the Hoop Threads podcast. Got my friend James Williams here from Between the Line Sports. James, how's it going, man?
Hey, not too bad, not too bad. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Absolutely. So, we met at Top 100 camp. That was an interesting event for me to cover. That was my first and possibly last. But it was good to meet you, your story, and get to connect there and keep in touch down the line. I mean, that was last summer, and we got to know each other a little since then. So, let's talk about what got you here. Talk about your high school sports experience and how you love football first, but you chose basketball eventually.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up in Georgia, which is a football heavy state, at least when I was growing up, I think it's definitely kind of more of a 50-50 thing now with basketball. But when I was growing up, it was football was king, and I had older brothers who loved the game, and so although I played all sports growing up, football was my focus. And I was really good, surprisingly. I mean, I was tiny, but I was a really good football player. And I played free safety, so I was very aggressive, like to hit people. And I think that probably came from me fighting with my brothers a lot when I was growing up too. So they kind of forced me to be tough on the field and off the field, to say the least. And just over the years of just competing and playing, I was always a starter. I was always one of the better players on the team. And coming into my freshman year at high school, came back for spring ball, and everyone had got bigger, and I was still like 5'2", 110 pounds, and everyone else was huge. And I was like, I think I'm done. It was really that simple. I was just like, I don't think I can do this anymore. It was because I even noticed as I progressed getting older that people were bigger than me, and and I was used to that, but they were really big, or getting outrun by somebody that shouldn't outrun you, but he's an elite athlete, kind of thing. And I was like, this isn't normal, and so I kind of realized that maybe football wasn't for me. And like I said, that spring, I was like, yeah, I'm done. And they're like, why are you? I was like, dude, you guys are huge. I don't need to, it was just that simple. You guys are huge. And do I want to take a pounding for the rest of my life? And I was like, no. And it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And then from there, and like I said, I played everything. I played football, baseball, basketball. I ran track a little bit here and there, but that was when I was like, yeah, I'm good. And I focused on basketball 100% thus far. I mean, and it hasn't stopped since.
Awesome. Talk about, your involvement with the college team and kind of the beginning of your, basketball career, so to speak.
So I played at a small NAIA school called Bryan College. It's in Dayton, Tennessee,
okay,
which is about 45 minutes north of Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a small Christian college. I went there because they took me. So nothing against. I had a great time at Bryan College. My college coach is he's one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. And so I don't regret going because I got to meet him, and he's an integral part of my life to this day. I talk to him often. I mean, a lot. I see him a few times a year. I talk to him probably a couple times a month. But he's an integral part of my life, and literally he's one of the best men I ever met in my life. But I went there because I had crappy grades. I wasn't a good student in high school, and I really wasn't even a good student in college, and until after basketball was kind of over as far as playing. But I definitely I worked my way into college. I had to call schools and set up tryouts to help a lot of people to see me, because I wasn't recruited at all.
Yeah.
And I called around, and of course all kids want to go high majors and all this stuff, and then as the smoke clears, you realize that no one's knocking on the door. You kind of have to make your own way. And so I did that. And Bryan was one of the first schools that I went to and worked out for. And the coach was, like I said, he's just a great guy. And I think he saw something in me past basketball that he wanted me to be a part of. And he brought me in. And then I was miserable playing basketball in college. It was a hard thing between grades and being ineligible and all these other factors that I became, depressed about it because it never kind of went the way I thought it was going to go.
Gotcha.
But I kind of found my legs when I stepped away from basketball playing and became like a student assistant coach for the team, and kind of saw more of the writing on the wall and realized I probably was meant to be a behind the scenes kind of guy as opposed to on the court kind of guy. And that's kind of like, that was like my first true introduction to like being off the court and what it takes to kind of maneuver and organize and structure stuff. So.
Got you. Talk about the getting into the role that you're hired into with the Atlanta Krunk, which remains the greatest minor league sports name of all time.
So I was an avid sports talk radio listener at the time, and Georgia Tech alum and not Hall of Famer, NBA All-Star, one-time NBA All-Star, but New York playground legend Kenny Anderson. He cut his teeth in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. He was on the radio and he was talking about how he had just taken a position as the head coach for a team in the CBA, in the Continental Basketball Association. And I was just excited, like just having an opportunity to kind of, like see what I could do. And so literally after I was in the car listening to the radio, I get home, I jump on my computer and I start just searching stuff. And I come across a phone number, and the phone number ends up being the owner of the team's phone number. And I call the guy. He doesn't know me, from Adam. And he, I tell him, tell him about myself the best I can and give him a quick spiel. And he says, well, hey, why don't you come out and help us? Because we're having open tryouts this weekend. I go out to the open tryouts, just help out where I can, rebounding, whatever was needed of me, I did. And they offered me a unpaid position as just a staff assistant, like just assistant to the team. And so, throughout the process of, that between the open tryout to the start of the season, I was promoted to assistant GM, and which I was excited about because I had shown my worth to the organization, so to speak. And so I was definitely excited about it. Again, in minor league sports, everyone does everything.
Yeah.
And so it was a title, but in theory, I still was doing the same thing I was doing before. Nothing really changed.
No major pay bumps.
No, not at all. But the team, we had some good players on the team, and it was at the time that the league was pretty relevant. Guys were still, we were flying around the country playing. And midway through the season, like the money kind of slowly started to diminish as far as guys getting paid on time and coaches getting paid on time, things like that. And Kenny resigned along with the GM. They both resigned at the same time. And we're probably maybe 12 games left in the season. And
how many games are there in the season?
I think there were, I want to say about 40 games is what I want to say. I'm not sure, but I think around 40 games.
Gotcha.
And now I'm thinking about it, maybe it was less than, so maybe
you're at least halfway through the year.
Yeah, we're about halfway through the year.
Gotcha.
And so this happens, like we're all kind of like, what are we going to do, and the players went to the owners of the teams, owners of the team, and suggested that I take over the role of head coach. And so over a course of a few minutes, I was promoted to head coach and then assumed the role of general manager. And based on what I was told, I'm not sure if this is true. I'm not sure how true this is, but this is what I was told.
Yeah.
That I was the youngest person to ever hold both those titles in the history of the CBA. Now, I don't know if that's true. I was 26 at the time, so I'm not sure if that's true or not. But I'm going to claim it until someone tells me different.
There you go.
And it was interesting also because I was the player connection because I was younger than Kenny and the other guys, so I was still connected to the players.
Yeah.
And so it went from almost peers to now a leadership role.
Mm.
And it was probably the first time that I was thrust into a leadership role with peers, guys your own age, not people younger than you.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge to say the least, because it was an uncomfortable setting. And it was the first time I had to definitely like assert myself off the court, because on the court as a point guard, I was always assertive because I had the ball,
Yeah.
and I could yell at somebody, I could, get on guys. But it was the first time that like I don't have the ball in my hands, and what do I do to like lead these guys?
Gotcha.
And so it was a great experience overall. I mean, learned how to manage people. I was definitely even when Kenny and the other guys were there, I had duties that I had to do that maybe they didn't want to. I was responsible for cutting guys. It was very what's the word? I don't want to. It was different because we would get. I don't want to say anything negative, but we would get like the owner would like Western Union money to us, and I would have to like literally he would Western Union like $10,000, to split amongst the players, and so I have to go pick this money up in like downtown Atlanta, like in like and people looking like. And you see like even the people like when you give them the the sheet for you picking up and they're like, is this right? I'm like, yeah, it's right. It's 10 grand. And like, and they're like, you might want to come out of the like one time they let me in to leave through the back. Like that's how crazy it was. That's how those old Western Union places like.
Yeah.
They don't let people in the back. Like they got the bulletproof glass and all this stuff. They don't let people in. And they're like, yeah, you can come to the back and leave through the back. And I was like, okay. I wasn't even thinking, but yeah, so it's just like walking around with that much cash at one time was a lot. And then having to divvy it up between the players because like there's no checks anymore. It's just like, hey, here's your money, here's your money, here's your money, and everyone just kind of gets their money.
Did they all get paid evenly, or was there like a scale for that?
They pretty much were paid evenly.
Okay. Gotcha.
And, so,
and then
yeah.
you also had like other responsibilities as far as operations go for like hotels and travel, right? Too.
Yeah, I did everything. So I booked travel, booked hotels. I negotiated partnerships with restaurants. Like I negotiated a deal with Golden Corral at the time.
Gotcha.
The team hotel was near Golden Corral, and I was like, okay, look, they're going to be eating here anyway, so let's try to get some sort of like deal where if the players come over a certain amount of times, there's a certain discount. And
gotcha.
The same thing with the hotel. I negotiated comp hotel rooms for the players, and
cool.
It was a lot. So I mean, it was just so many different moving parts, and I kind of did my best to kind of handle all of it at once.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a good training ground. Talk briefly on your experience in China with athletes in action, and then we'll get to the Canton Chargers days.
Good stuff. So my college coach currently works for Athletes in Action.
Okay.
He's been there since he left Bryan College, and so his name is Coach Mo. A lot of people in the sports world know Coach Mo. So if anybody's listening to this and they hear the name Coach Mo, if they know him, they'll know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But so Coach calls me one day, like just random out of the blue call. Hey, would you be interested in going to China? And I'm like, for what, Coach? Just like for what? Because he always handled, because like after that, Athletes in Action, they do tours. So they'll take teams on tours to go play abroad. And so I'm thinking maybe he's going to offer me a spot on the team to like help out with one of the tour teams. And he gives me the rundown that you're going to go over to Beijing for 6 to 9 months, and you're going to organize basketball camps and clinics around the city. And that's all he knew. And would I be interested? And I told him yes, I would be interested. At this time, I didn't have a passport, and I didn't have any money to get a passport. So long story short, I had to borrow money from a couple of my buddies to pay for my passport, and I had to get my passport. I had to get a rushed passport.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like So like I got the passport in like 3 days. Like it was quick.
Yeah.
And so got the passport, got the visa, go to China, and it was like the most amazing experience I've ever had. Just the culture. Well, first of all, I was taller than a lot of people, which has never happened. That's the first thing. So that was
whole new world.
Yes, whole new world. Like they had double-decker buses at one time on the top level of the bus. My head literally was touching the ceiling, and I was like, "What is going on?" Like, but yeah, so that was the first time I had ever been taller than the majority of people I was around.
what were the? I mean, I'm sure you had contacts that kind of helped you with setting up in tournaments and stuff. Like, just talk real quick on that, and then we'll move to the charge.
Yeah, they had I guess point people in place, and they literally did all the legwork. So we would just have to show up. It was me and another guy. We would show up on a Friday. We only worked like 3 days a week. We worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that was the crazy part. We worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the rest of the time there, we had off to do whatever we wanted to do, and we just just did stuff. We would go places. I mean, my buddy, he even flew to Hong Kong for a day one time, just because like it was just like we had so much free time, and
Gotcha.
it was just, but it was a great experience. I learned how to speak a little Mandarin. I don't remember any of it other than ni hao now, but I had stuff in my bag at the time that I could use and kind of communicate with people. But it was a great time overall. I really enjoyed it, and I've been trying to get back ever since. To be honest, I want to go back.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard good things. Just forcing yourself to be in those environments is kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Indeed.
Talk about what the Canton charge. Talk about how you put yourself out there before you got the job. So as far as sending letters out, going to events, and the Call 'em Up series.
Yeah. So first, I had been pursuing the NBA since I decided I was going to do basketball in some capacity, and so and you apply for jobs, and you try to meet people the best you can, and I just wasn't having any luck at all, and so I'd read up. I've always kind of been a person who kind of reads up on people who are good at their jobs, and so I had read up on Theo Epstein, who's the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs. And I had read up on Roger Goodell, who's the commissioner for the NFL. And they both had similar stories in how they got their starts in professional sports. And that connection was that they both wrote letters to every team in their respective leagues. So Roger wrote letters to everybody, and Theo wrote letters to everybody. And so when that happened, I was just, and this is the thing I had heard about. I had read about this stuff, years before I actually had done it myself, and I really didn't think that it was something that would happen for me. I thought it was something that happened for white people. I'm not gonna. That was my racist. I was like, that's just stuff white people. That never happened for me.
Gotcha.
And I got to the point where I was just like, screw it. Let's just let me just do it. And so I embarked on a process to prepare the most immaculate letter that I could prepare that would definitely showcase why I would be a good fit for a team.
Yep.
And so the funny thing about the letters is, I'm from Atlanta, so my template base was Atlanta, because Atlanta's literally the first team on the list of all the NBA teams anyway. So Atlanta's the first team. So, So in the letter, there are 2 points in times where I mentioned the team's name at the beginning of the letter and at the end of the letter. And so I changed all the names at the beginning of the letter, and then unbeknownst to me, I forgot to change all the names at the end of the letter. And so every letter that I sent out had whatever the team name was at the top of the letter, and at the bottom it still had Atlanta Hawks on it. And I didn't know this until this sweet lady, I can't remember her name. She worked for the Phoenix Suns. She called me after receiving my letter and told me what I had done, and told me that she wouldn't give this letter over to the GM until I sent a new one. And so at first I was very thankful that she did that for me. But on the other end, I was mortified to know that I had sent 60 letters, ballpark, because I sent 2 per team to the president and the GM, whatever the case may be. So 60 letters, and all of them outside of the Atlanta Hawks had the wrong information on it. And I was just like, I was just in shambles. I was really crumbling in the moment.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't hear back from most of the teams. I heard back from some, and most people said no.
Yep.
I got a couple of positive responses. One was from the Pacers. A guy named Peter Dinwiddie responded. He responded and said, "Thank you for the letter with everything, but definitely keep in touch." And I still keep in touch with Peter to this day.
Cool.
And the other letter response positive was from David Griffin, who was he was the VP of basketball at the time for the Cavs.
Okay.
And David sent a really great email follow up, and he just said, "Thank you for the letter. This is the kind of stuff that we're looking for. And you're the kind of person that we would like to have in our organization. Unfortunately, we don't have anything but just stay in touch. And if you see something, let us know.
Mhm.
And that was like, the only positives that I really got from the letters. But maybe 2 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, I see on the NBA job board that the Cavs were starting a new G League team. They were just calling the Canton team or something
Mhm.
at the time. And I see the job. I apply for the job. Then I go write I write a quick letter to Griff. It's maybe, a paragraph. And I just, hey, Griff, this is the job. I just saw this, whatever, asking him what he, referred me for the job. I overnight the letter to Griff, right? This is the thing. I think, and I probably had $5 in my bank account at the time. And the letter to overnight cost like $4.95.
Just enough.
just enough. And so, but I knew what I figured out was that letters tend to like land on people's desks.
Yep.
And they're more likely to open the letter as opposed to an email or answer a phone call from a stranger that they don't know. And
Harder to ignore, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so I knew that if I emailed Griff, he may or may not get the email. And I didn't feel comfortable calling him, but I knew if I sent the letter, he would get it. And so sure enough, I send the letter overnight. The next day, I get an email from Griff saying, hey, I'm walking your resume over to the guy who's hiring for this position right now. After that, it was a whirlwind of events. I had a couple of phone interviews. I got flown to Cleveland for a face-to-face interview, and it was literally the longest interview of my life. It was 8 hours. It was like, and it was nonstop 8 hours. Like from the moment I got to the facility until I got to my hotel that night, I was talking with people in some capacity or another about basketball, getting asked questions, and it was definitely more personal. So it was just more so like you just be sitting down having a conversation about basketball, and then next thing you know, you're thrust into this scenario of how would you answer phone calls from agents to what can you identify side pick. And I still remember this, like Wes Wilcox, who was my manager, who was the GM of the team, put me through a film session, and he asked me to identify pick and roll sets, and this is the thing. So like I thought I felt like I've always known more basketball than everyone that I knew, but I knew I didn't know more basketball than them. And this was the first time that I had actually heard the term side pick and roll, and I didn't understand what he meant. It was like, and right now it seems so stupid to me. It seems so slow not to know what he meant. At the time, I think I was overthinking. And so he's like pointing out all the side pick and rolls. And so I was thinking like, is he talking about, is the pick being set on the side, or is the pick being on the side of the defender, or is the pick on the side of the court? And I was so afraid to ask him that I didn't ask him. Yeah. And so I wasn't sure. So I was uncomfortable, in that setting. Then I kind of got like grilled by Griff, Wes, and Trent Redding, who's he's the assistant GM for the Clippers now. So in different aspects of basketball, and they, at one point in the interview, they was like, James, you seem nervous, and I was like, I am. They're like, why? I was like, because I'm sitting in a room with guys who've been around the NBA, not just basketball, around the NBA for 30 plus years combined, and the cool thing about Trent came out. He said, James, well, you know what? You've done something that none of us has ever done. And I was like, what? And I'm like, what? Like, what have I done that you guys haven't done? And they're like, you've been a head coach before. And that one moment where I coached in the CBA briefly was enough for them to kind of respect me as a basketball mind. And it just kind of like almost settled me down a little bit.
Cool.
But I still didn't feel like I did well. I went to my hotel that night, called my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't think I got the job. And she's like, why? I was like, I just didn't do well. And she's like,
yep.
And my mom, she was sweet in the moment. My mom's tough, but she was sweet in the moment. And she's like, baby, they wouldn't have flown you up if you weren't gonna get the job. And I was like, Mom, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works. So like, they fly people in and out of place all the time. This is not a big deal. And yep. So long story short, I go home. And I hear from Wes. Wes, like, I'll go call you in a couple of days. It's like I fly up on a Saturday. I think so. I leave Friday. I leave Saturday. He's like, you'll hear from us in a couple of days. So by Tuesday, I hadn't heard from him. So I'm thinking that I didn't get it. A couple of days later, Wes calls and he says, how would you like to be a member of the Cleveland Cavalier organization? And I was like, yeah, and it was like, yeah. And he was like, you sure? And the thing is, like, I didn't want to seem overly excited, but like,
Yeah.
the
Playing it cool.
Yeah, I tried to play it cool. He's like, you sure? I was like, yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so for me, my life kind of changed. Like, it was like an 8-day span from the time I got the call, from the email I got from Griff saying he's walking my resume over.
Yep.
To Wes Wilcox calling me, offering me the job. It was like 8 days.
Fast. Yeah.
So it was amazing.
What did you learn about the profession or the league while you were in Canton? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience, either from working with the team or directly from Chris Grant, David Griffin, those guys?
Well, I learned both. So from the team aspect, you find out that there's so many moving parts. And the cool thing is I feel like I did a lot of stuff. So I was on the court helping the coaching staff during practice. I was on the bench during games. I cut film. I advanced scouted. I picked up players, took them to practice in the games. I took players to get haircuts, helped guys get in their hotels. I did onboarding for HR stuff. I was in the room when players got cut. There's just so many aspects of the business. And then there's like the personal stuff. So like interacting with the staff, the other staff, the sales staff, and talking to season ticket holders and, speaking to fans, just overall, there's so many different aspects. And it was almost like I was becoming like a mini GM, because there's outside of signing the players, I was doing a lot of stuff around the team. And it definitely helped me prepare overall. And then the other side, just listening to Chris Grant and Wes Wilcox and David Griffin, like guys who are and now have all been GMs in the league. Chris was the GM at the time, but Griff's now been a 2-time GM or president. Wes has been the GM for the Hawks. So guys that have all run organizations, and you just learn so much so fast. Like Wes taught me how to read stats properly, and how to navigate a person's skill set based off stats alone, which is still something that I use now, because it's so easy to do, but I think a lot of people don't understand it. And it's not necessarily the point stuff; it's a lot of other things that go into it. Griff taught me how to always take a step back and not take things so serious. Griff, one time he told me, he said, "Go home." I spend so much time at the facility. He's like, "James, you're no good to me if you're tired all the time." He's like, I know you think that you're supposed to be here. And he's like, I appreciate it. He said, but go home. Like, you need to go home. You need to get some rest, because you're no good to us if you're out of it.
Gotcha.
And Chris Grant kind of taught me that there's steps to take, because Chris talked about how he used to do laundry. One time he came out to one of the games. He said, "You have to do laundry." I was like, "Really?" You just you see guys in these roles and you never see them in smaller capacities. And he's like, "Yeah, I used to wash laundry. I used to pick up players." He was like, when we did video, we had to do it on VHS. So he was telling me how they had to cut film on VHS. And I was like, Jesus. And so it just kind of gave you a perspective that you could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, that the hard work would pay off. Yeah. So you just kind of learn those different things from all of them.
Yep. Talk about the Call 'em Up series real quick. So that was after your time with the Charge.
Yeah. So when I left the Charge, I kind of had to get a non-basketball job. Yep. I used to say regular job, but somebody said that was rude to say. So a non-basketball job, and gotcha. I was miserable. I sold cars, and I was just, like I said, I was miserable. So I got out of that and got closer to back to the game, but not in the capacity that I obviously wanted. And almost as a therapy or kind of an outlet, I started clipping film, and I was clipping film on G League guys, obviously, because I had just come from that setting. That was the last setting that I was in. And so I was, they had these guys, guys that were good enough. They had this time during the season where you guys get caught up to the league for 10-day contracts.
Yep.
And so after watching film and watching identifying players that I thought would be good, I started cutting games or cutting players and posting the videos up on YouTube. And I called the series "Call 'em Up" because these are the guys that I thought had the best potential to contribute to an NBA team right away. And I did about 15 videos or so, and honestly, 14 of the 15 guys got called up, and I think that 15th guy is playing in Eurobasket. He's making money in Europe, so all those guys were like good players, and so like that was kind of the thing. And what happened was I was like I said, I was doing it for fun. It wasn't anything that necessarily like I was doing for recognition or to get a job. It was just kind of therapeutic.
Yeah.
And a G League coach came across one of my videos, and he was like, "Hey, how much do you charge for a video?" And I was like, "I don't know." He was like, "I mean, for me, because it wasn't a business at the time. It was just it was like I said, it was just therapy."
Yeah.
Because I missed the game so much, and he was like, "Well, you can make a lot of money off this." And I was like, "Really?" And like again, I'm thinking like, why? I'm thinking, and myself, it seems almost like why would you have a video coordinator? I'm sure why would you pay me to do this? But he was like, you know what? He said I'll give you X amount of dollars if you scout our next 3 games for us and clip them. And I was like, okay. For me, it was just like, that's easy money. I'm doing this. I'm doing it anyways. Hey, why not get paid for it?
Yeah.
And so, long story short, that kind of got me back in rhythm, so to speak. That like it kind of got my juices flowing. And from there, I went up to the G League showcase later that year, because this happened in like October. No, it was probably October, November-ish, and the G League showcase was right after Christmas.
Okay.
And so I flew up to Toronto, Mississauga. I told my boss at the time that I was going to a wedding. That was my friend's wedding in Toronto. And so if he hears this, I'm sorry that I lied, but I had to go.
Yeah.
But so I fly up to Mississauga for the G League showcase, because I knew, luckily being around the business before, I knew that at these kind of events, all the heavy hitters go to these events. So every GM, every VP of operations, all the decision makers go to the event. And so I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to go. And it's not necessarily a heavily a fan heavy event. So it's not like Summer League where like there's a million people in the gym.
Yeah.
It's just personnel people. So I fly up, and I'm broke at the time. So most of my money was spent on the ticket, and the hotel to get there. I fly up, I buy one. So I'm there for the last 3 days of the event. And so I buy tickets for the first 2 days, and I buy one ticket. And mind you, there are like 8 games during the day, and you technically have to buy a ticket for every game. But I buy one ticket, and I buy a floor seat though. And so buy a floor seat, and what I used to do. I still do this from time to time, but when I was first starting, I would go everywhere in a suit and tie. So I wanted to make sure I stood out, because I understand like how I look, and not like a race thing, but more so like I look like a baby. Like I know that I look like I know that people think
it's
that
an
I'm,
optics thing.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. And so I know people think that I'm 12. And so, and this beard doesn't help right now. It doesn't help at all. It doesn't help at all. But so I go suit and tie, and I sit on the floor, and I'm nervous that somebody's going to ask me for my ticket after the first game. And nobody does, because it's the same security person. We're just kind of sitting next to each other. He's talking to me, I'm talking to him. And like, we're just kind of flowing. We're talking, nothing crazy. I'm watching the games, and everything's going well. And the crazy thing, Aaron, the entire time I'm just nervous that somebody's going to ask me for a ticket and make me leave. And I don't want to go. And so the first day I hadn't even talked to anybody yet. So I'm just kind of there hoping that, I get to see somebody, and they still have like the NBA people kind of sectioned off a little bit. You can see them with their bag. They have like the little lanyards on.
Yep.
And like, so like I'm still kind of like outside, and I'm seeing people that I know, but I can't get to them. And maybe 4.5 games in, I'm like, I have to pee like bad. I've been holding my pee. And honestly, I probably was holding my pee since I got there, and I wasn't thinking about it. But I'm like, I gotta go. So
it's locked in.
Yeah, it's locked in. And so I asked the security, hey, where's the restroom? He kind of points up. And so I get up, and I was like, man, don't let anybody take my stuff. He's like, I got you. So I leave my computer and my coat there. And I go up the first flight of stairs, and I come to another security guard, and I'm thinking I'm about to go out into the lobby, or like the lobby area.
Yeah.
To go to the restroom, and I'm like, hey, where's the restroom? He's like, up there. He points up another flight of stairs. I thought the restroom was I'm pointing out to the lobby. I thought it was out here. He's like, no. He said, you go up there. And he kind of like demands that I go up the stairs. Like, and so I go up the stairs. And so when I go up the stairs, it's like a hospitality area up the stairs. And I'm like, what the? And I'm like, I'm so like what's going on? I'm so confused. And again, when I tell you, when I said I didn't have any money, I didn't have any money. So the only food that I was planning on eating was breakfast at the hotel because it was free.
Yeah.
So like that was my plan. Was like, I'll load up on breakfast. You know, I had, get an apple and an orange, for
sneak
snacks.
a muffin or two into the pants.
Yeah, exactly. And just, call it a day. And so I go up the stairs and like a hostess comes up. She's like, can I help you? And I was like, I'm looking for the restroom. And she just points to the restroom, like down the hall. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. So mind you, at this point, I'm noticing all this food. They have a full spread of food, like just a buffet of everything, all types of food that you can, any type of food you can get. It's just there.
Got you.
And, so I'm like, I'm not thinking anything of it. So I'm like, I go to the restaurant, I come back out. She's like, can I get you anything else? Are you hungry? Do you want, can I get you anything? And I was like, this is free. And she's like, yeah, for you. So when I finally like kind of take a step back and look around, I noticed that the only people that are up here are NBA personnel and the referees. Yep. So this is the hospitality area for just those people. And then I kind of put two and two together and realized that, I'm up here because I'm in a suit and tie. And that's the only reason why I'm up here is because I'm in a suit and tie. So people assume that I'm working for someone.
There you go.
And so I didn't say anything. Obviously, I get me a plate. I got lasagna. I never forget. I got vegetarian lasagna, and it was made with eggplant. And I ate like 2 plates of it. I was starving. So 2 plates. Just. And I go back downstairs, and the security guy's still there, and we're just talking. Everything's fine. Like I'm kind of like in the zone now almost, and then maybe a game or so later, a head coach, Ty Ellis, who was the head coach for the Suns G League team. I'm not sure who he's with now.
Gotcha.
He might actually be with Phoenix, but I'm not sure. But Ty comes and sits next to me, and we start talking just basketball. Just talking basketball, nothing crazy. And we started talking about I still remember I remember the conversation. We were talking about how bigs were started to be lazy in pick and roll coverage because all they wanted to do was call ice every time.
Yeah.
And the response, I said, you can't call, and I was like, you can't call ice unless it's a side pick and roll. Yeah. Now this goes back to Wes Wilcox, grilling me about pick and rolls when I interviewed with them. And so I was like, you can't ice unless it's a side pick and roll because you have to use the baseline and the sideline as an extra defender. That's how it works. I was like, you can't do it in the middle. And so we just start talking back and forth basketball. And he's like, who do you work for? It was like in mid conversation. I'm talking about something. He says, who do you work for? And I was like, nobody. He's like, so what are you doing here? I was like, I'm trying to get a job. I'm just trying to meet people. And so he kind of commented on how I was dressed and everything. He said, we're doing a good job. We just kind of continue to talk. But that question was kind of enough for me to kind of like know that like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
You're on the right path.
It was just kind of like the I guess the
validation.
Validation. That's the word I'm looking for. It was definitely validation in the moment. And then after that, I just kind of I ran into some people that I knew prior from working my time with the cab organization, the Canton Chargers. So just kind of reconnected with people and just kind of telling people what I was doing, and it kind of slowly just kind of like snowballed pretty much into like just me being a constant presence around the game.
Yep.
So that was kind of like the whole story, I think.
We'll come back to the that kind of experience and kind of breaking it into the league in a second. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to hit 2 general manager questions real quick. So,
okay.
As a GM, you have to view players and the athletes transactionally in a literal and figurative sense. Like, how do you toe that line of being professional and having that personal relationship with the guys while remaining honest? Because you got a job to do.
I think it typically starts with with building rapport with mm-hmm. players. I feel like if a leader builds the rapport first, and you guys kind of can understand what the common ground is. And so if we can both understand that the whole goal is to win, those tougher conversations are easier to handle, because once I can, and it doesn't happen quickly. So this is definitely something you have to build. But once you feel like you build a rapport, and it doesn't always happen that way. So, but if you build a rapport with the player properly, what I believe truly is that they can take criticism, and they can take, maybe being cut or being traded, because they may not like it, but they may understand. So especially if you kind of laid out your feelings and your passion for what you're doing, and they can kind of receive it the same way. And it's the same thing. Let's say you do something wrong, you do something that maybe they don't agree with, and they want to, as a man, they want to come to you and express how they feel. I feel like if we have a rapport, I should be able to receive what you're saying properly. And then that kind of goes to the transactions and, the signing or cutting players, that kind of stuff, because I feel like if we can make that connection first, all those things, while they may not be pleasant, they're understandable. And I feel like people who really understand the sport won't ever hold that grudge against you for cutting them or whatever the case may be, or cutting salaries, whatever. They won't, because at the end of the day, it's if you know my passion about it, and it's just to win, it's nothing personal. And there's actually a great, like Danny Ainge said this when he was in Boston. He was a player still. I guess he was really close with Red Auerbach at the time, and I guess Red got offered a deal for like Kevin McHale and somebody else, and it was like it was a great deal. And Danny says, he said Kevin was my best friend. I said Red, you'd be a fool if you don't make that deal. They obviously didn't make the deal, but it just the simple fact that like Danny in that moment understood. Then he's talking about his best friend, like on the team, like Kevin's my best friend on the team. He said, you'd be a dummy if you don't make that deal. And it just kind of, you have to understand that like nothing's personal. It just is
a business.
Yeah, it's just the business, and I understand things are taken personal, which I get. But most GMs don't do things maliciously to hurt players and their families. It just doesn't happen. I'm not saying it never happens. But I don't think most of the time they're doing anything malicious to hurt people.
Quick question, coming off of that, say, I'm Aaron Proy, I'm on the team, and, I got beef with James Smith, who's one of my teammates. I think he's ball hogging, and I come to you about it. I'm sure that the line of communication between me and you has to be good for me to come to you about it. But how do you toe that line between keeping the head GM in the loop on that conversation? You know what I mean? Like, how are you able to kind of pick and choose what you tell to him, or do you tell everything to him? Because I understand, if the player says something to you and then the GM approaches him, without saying anything about that situation, the player's going to kind of side eye you, and, that might cause, misplaced trust. So talk about kind of navigating those politics.
Yeah. Well, it's typically just a need to know kind of thing, to be honest. So sometimes as an assistant, sometimes your job is typically just to kind of like make the job for someone else easier. And so if you can handle a situation, the best thing to do is just handle it. And you may after you handle, you may tell them what happened, but the leader of the team has so many other things going on that he receives it and hears it, and he just kind of moves on. Doesn't think about it. The issue is if you can't handle it, then there has to be a point where you take it to you take it up like you take it up a pay grade, so to speak. And you want to relay it. And sometimes you say it in the sense that, hey, look, he doesn't want anybody to know what he's feeling. He just wanted to kind of get it off his chest, but I wanted to bring it to you because there may be some tension. There may be a rift somewhere down the line. So it's just something that you need to know about, because what happens is if you don't tell them and, crap hits the fan, and then maybe there's a fight or, something on the court happens. He's going to be like, why didn't I know this? Because he's probably going to assume that I did. And so you have to share
that information.
Share, you have to share it, even if nothing's done about it. It's just the idea that you keep something from them when it's their team. It's that doesn't fly. So like I said, if I handle the situation, hey, this is what was going on. I calmed him down. I told him this, that, and the third, and he's good now. Okay, great. Or if I try to talk to him and it doesn't work, hey, look, this is what's going on. He's upset. I want you to be aware of it. He's fine, I think, for now, but it may be an issue down the line. So just keep a lookout on it. And it just kind of it covers you. So that's the politics, covering you and covering the team overall. So
there you go. Talk about and how important opportunity is, and right place, right time. Kind of fortune favors the prepared in those situations, and they can change like an entire player's career. So kind of talk about how important that opportunity is sometimes.
Yeah, I think preparations first. I think so. Opportunity is great, but I think an opportunity can't present itself without being prepared, and then it's a wasted opportunity. So I think
Yep.
first and foremost, you have to be prepared, and whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're a player, if you're like somebody like me who who's on the other side, the operation side, scouting side, whatever the case may be, if you're not prepared for the moment can pass you by.
Yep.
And I think like sometimes, a lot of times, everyone isn't highly touted. Everyone isn't sought after, and sometimes you have to create opportunities for yourself. And I think a lot of people, if people understood that, like a lot of people, oh, I'm not getting scouted, or I'm not getting recruited, or I'm not getting any looks, or I'm not on whatever your situation is. About you're not on a draft board, you're not on a top 100 list for high school.
Yep.
You're not on the best AAU team, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you have to create opportunities for yourself, and sometimes like me, like I said, I wrote letters, I reached out to people, I did a lot of stuff on my own to put myself in positions to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I did, opportunity kind of the opportunity takes shape from there. But
Yep.
if I wasn't there, and then also if I wasn't there, if I wasn't ready, then the opportunity kind of goes away. And it's all about the preparation, I think. But I think also understanding that everything isn't going to just fall in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're I think I'm the best at what I do. I do, but like that doesn't mean that everyone else does, and everyone's gonna seek me out because I think I'm the best at what I do. Sometimes you have to showcase your skill set. Sometimes you have to provide opportunities for people to see it. And so
Yep.
it just all depends on the makeup of the person, the preparation of the person, and the opportunity for that person. That makes any sense.
Exactly. Let's talk real quick about kind of advice for people breaking into the business, and then we'll move, towards the scouting service that you have. So I think it's important for young people to know that, moving from failure to failure without losing perspective or positivity is really important. Dealing with imposter syndrome, as far as just, a lot of the self-doubt that creeps in, it's kind of important to have a strong circle around you, but also, the resiliency is important. So I want you to share your story about the GM red penning your scouting report versus the don't show this to anybody guy.
Yeah. So the summer after the G League showcase, I go to Vegas for the NBA Summer League. Mm-hmm. And over the course of the time between the showcase and the Summer League, I obviously reaching out to teams, showing some of the videos that I put together and some reports that I had done. And so I set up several meetings. So over the course of the week I was there, I think I scheduled an 8-day trip to Vegas, which is entirely too long. First of all, I'm now a firm believer that Vegas is a 3-day trip, 4-day max, but no longer than 4 days under any and that's partying or otherwise. And I'm not a partier, so even if you're not partying, I think Vegas is a 4-day trip max. So I scheduled a trip for 8 days because based on what the teams were telling me when they were available, I just I'll make myself available for you. So if you say I can meet you on this week, I'll be there. If you say you can meet me on this day, I'll be there. And so that's kind of what I did.
Yep.
And so I go.
Quick question on that: if you could go back right now, would you do that differently? As far as saying, I'm free on Monday at between 2 and 4. You know what I'm saying? As far as kind of owning that conversation, would you do that any differently, or do you think you played that right?
I think I would do it the same way. I would,
okay.
Because I just what I know about NBA people is that things change quickly.
Yep.
But the thing is also, if you're not available for them when they're available for you, they'll write you off as well. So like, the things like I can't, I wasn't in a position to write anybody off and say, well, screw those guys. They're not gonna, meet me on my time. Then, yeah. So, but anyway, so I go to Vegas, fly, same thing. I scrape up all my coins pretty much, flight, hotel, Vegas, it's July. I think I had 6 meetings set up in 8 days.
Got the
And
church suit on too.
yes, I did. I had the nice, and I think I brought several. I think I had like 3 suits. I took 3 suits with me because I want to wear the same suit every day.
Yeah.
So I brought like 3 suits. So and like you said, wool shirt. This is real. This is a real suit. It's not like a linen summer suit where I ain't have no money for that. I have no money. So like this is a real suit.
Yeah.
And it's Vegas in July, so it's like 107 degrees.
Yep.
And you're outside, with your, trying to get in with a ticket. So long story short, I get there, and slowly, teams just start to like cancel on me.
Yeah.
My first I had to meet the first day they cancel. Hey, can we reschedule? Yeah, sure. And then they don't respond to when the reschedule is, kind of thing. And so this keeps happening. We're like, hey, we can't do it right now. Something's come up. And you're trying to stay positive, but in the moment you're slowly like losing faith almost that
Yep.
things aren't working out. And so a buddy of mine, maybe on like I think it's like the third day, tells me, hey man, you should probably go up to the hotels. Like it's like like a lot of the players are staying at this hotel and that hotel, and a lot of people are just there. So maybe you should just kind of go play at the bar. So I think it's one night I leave the gym. It's 10 o'clock or so. Leave the gym, go to the hotel, change clothes, and go to one of the casinos at the hotel. And I'm literally just walking around in circles because this is a huge room, and you just walk around in circles. I'm not a big drinker, so just walk around, just seeing people that I know, but not feeling comfortable enough at the time to like walk up to them and say something to them. So just kind of like just thinking that I wasted my time, and I'm like, man, I just got in a freaking, I think I took a cab or something at the time. So I just spent money on a cab, to come over here. I bought this one expensive drink because, I didn't want to look like so I buy a drink that, so I'm babysitting this drink that I don't really want, so this is bad, so it's bad. And I run into this one executive that I had a previous conversation with over the phone earlier in the year, and it wasn't a pleasant conversation.
Yeah.
And so, I'm polite. I'm Southern, so like Southern hospitality is you speak to people that you know. So I see him. I walk up to him. Hey, Mister, such and such. I'm not sure if you remember me, but he's like, yeah, I remember you. Blah 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 blah. He said, how you doing? I was like, I'm fine. Just out here, I'm trying to connect with people, see if I can get a job. Yeah, okay. Let's sit down tomorrow. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah. You still got my number? Yeah. I was like, yeah, I still got your number. So just call. He said, text me. Tomorrow around this time, and we'll sit down and talk. So I'm just at this point, I'm just excited that somebody wants to sit down with me because everything so far has gone horribly wrong. And so next day, I'm at the gym, hit him. I text him. He responds right away. Hey, meet me over at this corridor at this time, and we can sit down and talk. I meet him there. We sit down and talk. So give him the spiel, what's been going on. I had this folder. I had 2 folders. I had one folder with scouting reports and play diagrams and things like that. And I had another folder with like my personal
philosophy.
Yeah, philosophy on how I would build a team and things. And so I'm showing them the scouting reports first, and no joke, this guy literally takes out a red pen out of his pocket. I was like, who carries a red? First of all, who carries a red pen out of all the pens people carry pens, but who carries a red pen? Like that's, and I was like, and so the dude just literally starts literally red marking my work, red marking my work. He's like, I don't need this. This isn't useful. Like this is, he was just slowly and just no second thought, no compassion, just ripping. And I have worked in this stuff for like months. This is like my work. This is like the culmination of like almost a year of work. I just worked. This is all I had. He just rips. He's just going through it, just like tearing to shreds. And and he pretty much, not even pretty much. He tells me, he said, I think you probably do think about going into another line of work. He said, I don't know if this is for you.
Yeah.
He said, it's not. And he's like, it's not for everybody. So he's like, but. I think you're a good kid, just, try to, but at this point, I'm literally like, when I say I could have cried, like, I wanted to cry because it was just so harsh,
Yeah.
and I was just like, and at that point I wanted to go home. So this is day 4. I wanted to go home. So I got 4 more days in Vegas, and I'm like, I'm ready to go. And I think I don't even stay the whole night that night. I think I left the gym early. I went to my room. I'm online trying to see if I can get a flight out. If I can switch my flight, or what's going on with the hotel. Can I get my money back from the hotel? And when I found out that I couldn't get my refund on my hotel, I was like, I can't waste this money then. But I wanted to go home. I wanted to call. I called, and the things I called my mom, but I didn't tell her what happened. It was just one of those things. Like I just wanted to kind of hear the voice.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her what was going on, but I just kind of like,
She would have got mad too. She would
right.
want his number, name, address, all that. Yeah. She like my mama.
My mama thug. She definitely did that. Yeah. She definitely did that.
Next day though, you bounce back to talk about that meeting.
Yeah. So the next day, the next 2 days were great, really. So the next day first, this day I kind of decide that I'm not going to be in the gym. I've kind of been in the gym, sitting as close to the NBA people as I could, hoping that I may see somebody that I know and to have a conversation. So this day I just decided to kind of play the corridor because a lot of people were just kind of outside talking.
Yep.
And I see a guy that I recognize, and I know what team he works for, but I can't remember what his name is. So luckily we were connected on LinkedIn. So I go on my LinkedIn and I type in the team, and there's his name. So I see him. He's talking to someone at the time. So I wait till he gets done. I wait till he's done, and I walk up to him and I say, Mr. His name is Noah Kroom. Mr. Kroom, how are you? I'm not sure if you know me, but we're connected on LinkedIn. And he's like, have a seat. Just pleasant. Just have a seat. And I'm like, okay. And so he's like, tell me about yourself. So I start telling him about myself. What I've been doing, my previous work experience with the Cavs and CVA.
Yep.
I show him my work, and he's like, this is really good. And this is honestly, and this is the report stuff. So I'm saying, this is really good. I was like, really? You think so? He's like, yeah, this is really good. You're very detailed. I see you have a good eye for basketball. Blah 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 blah. I was like, okay, great. And so he's like, do you have my number? No, sir, I don't have your number. He said, take my card, shoot me a text. We can stay in touch. And I still stay in touch with Mr. Krunk to this day. We talk a few times a year. I text him, he texts back. I actually was a part of one. He did a Zoom call recently in Minnesota that I jumped on to kind of like listen to. It was really cool. But the next that night, so this is the start of the great day. So that night I was back at the casinos again with a buddy of mine who's an agent, and he introduces me to this guy who works for the Raptors. And just in passing, we talked about being in Mississauga, and he was like, have you been to the city? I was like, no, I had been. Like, it's a really beautiful city. You should definitely try to come see it. And it was just kind of in passing. It was, it was a cool conversation. See him at the gym the next day, and I go up to him and I say, hey, would you mind, do you mind talking for a moment, when you have some time? He's like, yeah. He's like, after this game, just come grab me. And so in NBA talk, come grab me is, if you can catch me before I leave out of here, we're good. But if you don't catch me, I'm not thinking about you.
I'm gone.
And I won't think about you ever again.
Yeah.
It'll just be out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And so the crazy thing, so during the entire game, I'm not watching the game. I'm watching him to see if he moves the entire time. Because if he moves, I got to hop up and try to catch him before he moves.
Yeah.
And so watching him, people talking to him, things that, and about maybe 5 minutes before the game ends, I get up and I walk outside, because at Summer League, it's typically a rush. So as soon as the game ends, a bunch of people leave the gym, and they're trying to go to the other gym, because there's 2 gyms at UNLV.
Yep.
And so I wanted to get up and beat the crowd, because I knew if I didn't, I probably wouldn't even have an opportunity to see him, see if he moved. And so sure enough, I get out early. I'm kind of waiting outside the door. As the horn tips, I just kind of peek my head in. And as I peek my head in, he looks over at me, and he kind of gives me the one finger to say, like, 1 minute. Yep. And so, he comes out, we start talking, and I show him my stuff, and same thing. We're just kind of talking about my upbringing and basketball. And I was even kind of telling him how, disheartened things had gotten recently.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then I show him my manifesto, so to speak, whatever,
Yeah.
And he's like, this is amazing. And he reads the whole thing in front of me, just reads it. It's probably 14 pages, 15 pages. It wasn't long.
Yeah.
but it was long enough to kind of break down how I think about basketball.
Yep.
And so like he's like, this is so good. He's like, he said, don't give this to anybody. And I just kind of looked at him like side. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, somebody else steal this and use. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, this is really good. He said, show it to him. Show him what you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But don't give this to anybody. Don't share. Don't hand this over to anybody. And so the crazy thing is, and this we didn't talk about this the last time, but like when we talked, but like the next day I showed it to somebody else and he asked for it. Somebody asked for it, and I'm not gonna say who it is, but like it's somebody I'm still close with today. But he said, you have another one? I was like, and the things I had several. I had like 4 of them.
Yeah.
But
you've just been told that, yeah.
Yeah. So I did. So I didn't give it to him, and sure enough, that guy became a GM sooner, like not too long after. And so who knows? Maybe he was gonna use my stuff. But
So
that kind of go ahead. I'm sorry.
So,
that just kind of turned around the weekend overall, and it ended up being those guys that I connected with are still guys that I talk to now. I communicate with them often. We text, we call, I see them. So it's been those are good working relationships that I developed over the course of the time.
Networking is definitely a huge part of it, especially in basketball. Just a small community. How does your playing style, or what you learned from the NBA, inform your scouting methods today? Or how has it changed from the beginning?
So when I first started on the grassroots level, I was harsh. I was very critical of players, and somebody close to me read one of my reports, and he was like, James is like, this kid's 16, right? And I was like, so like I was like, I'm like, I write what I see. I'm being defensive almost. And he's like, but James, he's not a finished product. He's like, this isn't like a 3-year guy who's been in the NBA that you could be harsh on. This is a kid. So you have to be able to reel that back in a little bit and he's like, still write what you see, but don't be critical of him because he's going to change.
Yeah.
And so that one piece of advice helped me kind of navigate and identify my style for grassroots because now I'm still I'm very detailed in what I write, but I'm also very I'm delicate with negativity, so to speak. Now I'm not saying that I'm still truthful, so I tell people what someone does well and what someone doesn't do well. But I won't rip a kid.
Is that more behind closed doors with the athletes? So you're not gonna write Aaron Pruitt. It's very loose with the ball, terrible. It's a turnover machine. But you might have that conversation with me offline and be like, hey,
right,
man.
Right, for sure. And even if I write about somebody, I'm going to put something. It won't be a negative. I will probably label it as a weakness or something that needs to be improved. And so you try to word it where it's not taking personal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of kids can kind of receive something if it's not personal. Just something that he's really good, but he needs to work on this a little bit. And it's almost like kind of an afterthought. They're probably so happy about the positive stuff that they didn't even catch the negative stuff. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect segue into my next question was just, what do you say to a player about their demeanor and their body language, maybe after seeing them, play in a tournament? Because, you do have their best interests at heart. And, and nowadays with social media videos, coming out like, a second clip or, an outburst can, really be detrimental to their recruiting if they're not a super talented kid. So kind of talk about those conversations and what they sound like.
For sure. Well, what I try to tell people, and this is kids, parents, everybody, unless you're like a stud, and those are anomalies, so to speak. Jalen Green's a stud. Jonathan Kuminga's a stud.
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham's. These are studs, right? And these are all really good kids, right? Excuse me. And so, unless you're a stud, your behavior has to be on par, positive all the time. It has to be positive all the time because, and I take that back, not positive, but it has to be. People understand things go wrong in games, and people are going to react to them. But what it can't be, you can't be dismissive to your coach. You can't be dismissive to your teammates. You can't appear to be. You can't appear to be that. It can't appear that you're not coachable.
Yeah.
that you won't listen. You can't showcase selfish tendencies or demeanors. Your body language has to be, encouraging, because if people see that you get down in a setting like grassroots high school basketball, what's going to happen when you go to another level? And so I always try to tell people that, like, you have to understand that somebody's always watching. And I know people, and I tell them all the time, I know that's a saying you hear all the time, but it's so true. It's even more true now than it was when I was in high school, because now camera phone people, there are actually people at games with cameras.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was a dad or a mom in the stands recording the game. That was it. It wasn't like no one had, like, there weren't like baselines lined with cameramen, looking to post this stuff on social media.
Yeah.
So now, like, it's even more true, because there are literally cameras everywhere. And anything can be taken out of context, or it may not. Like, I mean, I see kids all the time that, I saw some kids a couple of weeks ago, and they were just, they spazzed out on the bench like several times. Every time they got taken out of the game, they spazzed out. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is, like, and me, I'm like, what is wrong with them? Like,
yeah.
And it's the same thing I just said. Like, if you're not, you got to be really good to overcome a really crappy attitude.
Yeah.
And, again, those guys are few and far between. So if not, you really it gotta be the right fit and the right person, because
They have to understand too, with college, this is people being recruited now. Coaches are picking their teams, they're selecting them. I mean, obviously at certain high schools and prep schools and stuff, that's happening at a lesser level in college. But I mean, everyone on their team from player 1 to player 15 is someone that the coach wants to be there. And so, if you're not, one of the top 3 guys, the attitude can't be an issue. Kind of coming off of that, talk about the importance of not being married to an evaluation or take, which is something that is really difficult for evaluators, because you don't want to point out when you're wrong, but sometimes you just got to own it. So give me an example of that happening, or the importance of walking into things with an open mind.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I definitely I feel like I'm definitely one of the more open-minded guys. Well, I don't know how people. I know how I am. I definitely know that people put certain guys in boxes.
Yeah.
And so the quick story I'll tell you is, the first time I saw Jalen Green, I wasn't impressed with him. I wasn't. I felt like he didn't play well the day I saw him. He made bad decisions, and I was like, wow, this is like, I think at the time he was like the number 5 player in the country. I just was like, no, I didn't see it, right? But the one thing I know about basketball, I know about, and more importantly, I know about people, is that people are always evolving, growing, and changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell this now, like, you never know what's going on with the kid. The kid may have just broken up with his girlfriend, or his mom's sick, or anything. He left his lucky shoes at home, and you just never know, because we're people, and certain things make us tick and other things don't. And so, like, if I had just decided that in that moment when I saw him the first time that he wasn't a good player, like, how wrong would I have been, right? So instead of doing that, I wrote what I saw, right? Yeah. So I wrote down the things I just mentioned, that he made bad decisions with the ball in his hands. He shot poor from the field, turned the ball over. I wrote that, and this wasn't a public report, so it's my notes for people who subscribe to my service.
Yep.
But I see him again later, and then he's evolved. I see him at USA Basketball in October, and then I see him at Chick-fil-A Classic in December, and I'm like, this isn't the same kid that I saw the first time.
Yeah.
And so now, by the last time I saw him, I'm like, he's arguably the best player in the country. Like, and the cool thing about my job is I get to see these guys. So I get to see Cade, I get to see Evan Mobley, I get to see Jonathan, I get to see Joshua Christopher.
Yep.
I get to see all these kids. I get to see them, and I'm like, so I really have a good gauge for talent at this point. And I'm not doing just a regional thing or coastal thing. I'm seeing everybody. And so when I see Jalen, the last time I see him, I'm like, he's the best player in the country. Like, everything's just kind of on. Like, you see, like, he's put on some weight. He's handling the ball. He's making better decisions. He's shooting off the dribble with ease. He's elevating over defenders. He's creating for his teammates. All these things, and I'm just like, wow, like, if I had a gone with what I saw first, how stupid would I look now?
Yeah.
You know, and so what I typically try to do, and I think it's a good avenue to take, is you never want to put anybody in a box.
Yep.
And I think it's harder, and I think the thing is, it's also harder if you see somebody often, because then you get accustomed to somebody, and then you may not even appreciate what the kid does well, because I think a lot of times also is that we want to magnify flaws as opposed to highlighting strengths, and I
Yep.
think because at the end of the day, what does he do well? Like people want to know what he doesn't do well, but he does this well, he does this well, he does this well, and he can contribute with those skill sets. And I think
Yep.
a lot of people have to understand that, like, no, there's not a perfect basketball player. The closest one that I've ever seen is Michael Jordan, and he wasn't perfect, but
Yep.
so there's things that everybody's gonna have to work on. And so I feel like if you understand that, you can make a truthful evaluation
Mm-hmm.
and not label somebody harshly at the same time.
Got you. Kind of similar to that. So basketball is, very relationship heavy. So, talk about being honest in your evaluations while A, not being hard on a kid, B, understanding that you need to be fair, for college and high school coaches to want to continue working with them, because no one's going to be happy with rankings ever. And there's a lot of times that people get upset that player A is being talked about while player B that guarded them and had similar stats are not heavily mentioned. So talk about kind of navigating those relationships, especially in a public space like Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult because everybody wants their guy to get shine and get love, and I'll be honest, I'm still not great with social media as far as just highlighting players. I'm doing my best to do better with it, but there's only so many people you can write about, and that's the honest to God truth. I feel like in theory, there are a lot of guys that I can take. If I can show you a set of event notes, and you'll see that I have notes on. In case I went to an event a couple weeks ago, and there's so 10 players per team, and there's 70 teams in the event. Like there's a lot of teams, so I can get notes on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't write about everybody. Now, and the thing is, that's the thing I try. I mean, I may have notes on you, but I'm not going to write about you because, I mean, well, let's say you shot well from the field for the event. This other kid shot, 65% from three, and he took a bunch of shots. So it's not, so like, yeah, you shot, you made 3 out of 4 and, 3 out of 6. So you shot the ball really well, which is great, but this kid shot the piss out of the ball. And so between the two, I'm probably gonna talk about him because he did a better job. Not saying that you didn't, so it's just it's interesting to like share. And I try to tell people all the time too, players in particular. I was like, look, I understand that you guys want to be popular and be known on social media, right? And like, yeah, of course, everybody wants to get their likes up. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, but what's the end goal? And I always try to be as direct as I possibly can. What's the end goal? I want to get a scholarship. Okay, well I'm gonna help you do that. And so like if you can understand that, and that goes back to the building the relationships with people, so I can build a rapport with you. And because again, like people, I think people understand that like I don't have to do it. I'm doing it because I want to help. And like so typically like the players I don't take like requests to like go see people and stuff. So this is all I do all this stuff because I want to.
Yeah.
And so when I'm doing these things, it's just like I want to help you. And so listen to me when I tell you this, like, this is what you need to do. Don't worry about Twitter and Instagram. And I know they just be like, whatever, I know they're not listening to me, but the end goal is, this is the thing. I was, am I going to tell you, am I going to tell a coach about you? Yes, I will. Yeah. And so am I going to put you in my report that's going to coaches? Yes. That's what you need to be worried about. Not if I tweeted about you and, you got to retweet it and, other people get to see it. Let's worry about if you get a call from a coach tomorrow. That's the end goal. So, and gotcha. I think if people have a open, are receptive to that, the better off they'll be in the long run.
Got you. What's the biggest lesson you've learned since you started your own service?
Always be in the gym.
Hmm.
Always be in the gym. There's so much basketball being played, even in the pandemic right now. There's still a lot of basketball being played. Case in Atlanta, we've been in the gym every weekend since June 27th.
Wow.
So every weekend. So there's been something going on. So the thing is this: you can't. Although I can't, there's still like I still see players all the time that I've never seen before, which is just it happens. But the more you're in the gym, the more information you're going to gather, whether it's player, game skill stuff, or it's like personal stuff, grades, interpersonal relationships with people, demeanor, character, coachability. You can't get those things on film, and I know streaming is really big right now.
Yeah.
And which is, I think it's beneficial because the players need something and they need a platform to showcase themselves. But
Yep.
But I think always be in the gym because that's my job. At the end of the day, it's my job to be in the gym and to watch basketball and to watch and evaluate people. And I can't do that from home. So be in the gym.
Gotcha. Let's talk about how you're expanding, your business right now, and then we'll move on to, high school questions. So, you hired a bunch of, an intern staff. So talk about, kind of your plans for expanding Baseline in the near future and kind of far out.
Yeah. The business has grown drastically since I started, and so everything was obviously when I started it was just me, and I was traveling all over the place, going to different events, and which was fun. I mean, I still want to do that kind of stuff, but there's other things, there are other avenues, and there's other lanes that I need to establish myself in order to kind of cement, a presence in the space. And so, I started launched a website. I launched a website. Have a, I manage a player database, which is private only to people who subscribe. Started a podcast. I write event, articles and event reports. So there's a lot of moving parts. And so now, having some assistance, either with coverage of events or social media, handling social media, managing the database. It's all grown so fast, and even the pod, I launched the podcast. So between all these different avenues, I stretched myself too thin, and so I needed to definitely like bring on some people who could help and assist and continue to grow the business. Because if I didn't, nothing would get done to the level or to my liking. Because
the detail you like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so having other people to help definitely will allow the company to kind of expand on a more rapid level, I think, for sure.
Cool. So you're in your interview with, I believe his first name is John Stovall. He works for Nike. He mentioned something interesting. He said that level is the most overrated thing in basketball. And also the popularity, it's kind of a popularity contest, versus a basketball contest. So talk about, level being overrated and, telling kids to focus on, dogging your matchup as opposed to IG highlights.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely an old school mentality for sure. I mean, I think at some point this was kind of lost. That I think a lot of the people would say, if you're good enough, they'll find you. Yeah. And I think at some point that was kind of lost. I truly believe that was lost.
Yeah.
And that a lot of kids who probably were good basketball players were being overlooked because they weren't going to the right schools.
Yeah.
But what I think has happened over the course of maybe the past 10 years or so, what you find is that like while although still a lot of one and done guys and a lot of guys are still getting drafted, a lot of teams are being filled with guys who didn't go to those schools and who maybe were 4-year guys and who played at mid majors and low majors, who have skills and attributes that fit with NBA teams. Mm-hmm. So level, I think if you find a team, a program that you fit in and that fits you, mm-hmm. that should be the only goal that matters. Because if you let's say I want to play, I want to play college basketball. I'm coming out and I have Division I offers from a few high majors, mid majors, and low majors. What I'm looking for at this point, because what I'm looking for is the best fit for me at that point. And
Yep.
so somewhere I can go play right away, somewhere where I can contribute, somewhere where like I'll be given the leeway to make mistakes, right? And then what happens is you have those kind of, if you go that route, you'll kind of go through every stage of what college basketball typically was back in the day when Michael and Ralph Sampson and all those guys played 3 and 4 years of college. They were the freshmen who, didn't have any responsibility. You kind of slowly ease your way into a leadership role in your sophomore or junior year. And then by the time you're a senior, you're the guy on the team. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yep.
But those guys typically, now those guys who have those careers in college, they come into the NBA more ready to play than those freshmen who were one and dones and who kind of been the guy since they were 12. So like I've been the man since I was 12.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden I get drafted, top 15, and now there's 12 other guys on the team who just skids me. And like, how do I navigate that? And that's hard for a kid who's never had to deal with anything. While you find a kid who's, been a bench warmer, who's got a little tick and became the man over the course of 4 years, that guy can be dropped in any situation and he's going to thrive because he's ready. He's been prepared for this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so I think that if you pick the right place and you're allowed to grow organically, that's the most important aspect, because I think that helps you become the best you. And at the end of the day, you'll get to where you're supposed to go. I think people somehow are so confused. They're like, if you're an NBA player, you're an NBA player. Now, there are certain guys that like are on the cusp, and they may or may not be able to do it. But most NBA players are pretty easy to identify if you're good at your job. And I typically can. He's going to league, and as long as this guy, like John said, as long as you don't mess it up, typically you can point those guys out. And honestly, whether you're a one and done guy or you're a 4-year guy, if you're an NBA player, you can see it. There's a couple of kids who graduate from out of my state last year who aren't like highly touted, like USA All-American, all those guys. They're not but these guys are gonna be pros. I just know it.
Yeah.
And it's just so for me, it's kind of waiting to see now. It's like, when is it gonna happen? Is he gonna pop early? Is he gonna pop late?
Yeah.
But as long as he doesn't mess it up, it's gonna happen typically. So.
Got you. Let's talk. We'll do 2 more questions, and then we'll finish up with the front office exercise. So, talk about today's elite athletes and how they have a different mindset than I believe athletes even 10 years ago versus 20 years ago. They understand branding. They're focused on branding, even in high school. Sometimes even as early as middle school, there's so much more attention on them. Especially because of social media. They're ranking. Middle school kids now, as young as, 4th and 5th grade, which is ridiculous. But they understand that college basketball is a job. They're more socially conscious and, more aware of kind of the positives and negatives. Positive and negatives of social media. So kind of talk about how they've, they've changed over time to deal with the times, and kind of how tightly knit they are, especially at the elite levels.
So there's a cool side to this. I think that this generation of kids is definitely more has more of an entrepreneurial spirit. I think the cool thing about that is I think that is directly correlated to like LeBron and KD and Steph and all these guys who have like who kind of established like brands that are outside of their sport, right?
Yep.
And presences outside of that sport. And I think so, like, LeBron's, and this is at the NBA level, but so now you see guys, if they can kind of build it beforehand, how much more valuable are they? I think these kids are recognizing that if you build your brand the right way, and you actually are, elite and can be a successful basketball player, how much more valuable would you be to the masses because you've already come in with a following? LeBron signed a $100 million deal with Nike as a high school player before he even plays, NBA basketball. Was like unheard of back in the day, right? But now that makes more sense now, because now these kids, you see some kids, they got 2 million followers on social media, on Instagram already. It's
his son.
Right, it's crazy to think about. And so that kind of stuff, so like that's valuable, to the pocketbook of companies.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of companies that will want to get into business with you because of that. And so I think that's so important. And I think that there's certain kids that do it the right way. I think the downside to that is the kids that are doing like that, it only encourages all the other kids to do it, and everyone doesn't have that. Like everyone, everyone isn't the popular kid.
Yeah.
It's just kind of that way. Everyone can't be the popular kid.
Gotcha.
And it's okay. But I think, the guys that are, I think they're doing it the right way. And I think the cool thing, how close they are. I think that it's cool that these guys are like friends.
Yeah.
While they still compete. I've seen these guys, like, they talk crap to each other. They're aggressive when they're playing against each other, but like off the court, they're really friends.
Yeah.
And so I think I definitely credit that to the previous generation of NBA players who kind of showcased that friendships don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a hatred towards somebody that you're competing with. Like, competition is just that. Like, if you, this was my line since I was in high school. If you put him in front of me, I'm gonna kill him. And you put my mom in front of me, she's gonna get crossed up. Like, it's just how it's just.
Nobody's safe.
Like that's just how it works. So like.
Gotcha.
So like my competitive drive doesn't like go away because I'm playing against my friend. It probably intensifies. Now, does that mean I'm not? It gives me more bragging rights to talk crap to when we're not playing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these kids have that. I think the older people only see, oh, they're so close, and there's and it kind of irks them. But truthfully, man, even back in the day, guys would have like celebrity games, and Michael Jordan had a celebrity game. I remember going to a Dominique Wilkins celebrity game, and other NBA players played in. They've been doing this stuff for years. It just wasn't on social media. So I think it was more private, and now that it's out public, it bothers people that they're so close and friendly publicly.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jordan even got killed. I think Jeff Van Gundy called him. I forget what he said. He said he was the silent assassin or something, because he would go to dinner with Oakley and them before games, and then he would kill him on the court.
Yep.
And I mean, I definitely still love to see kind of that old school, really competitive mentality in guys like Dame Lillard and Jimmy Butler. But give me an underrated player in the basketball space, whether that's a tournament guy, a scout, trainer, media. And then we'll move on to that last part.
Wow. Underrated guy in the basketball space. Tournament guy, I would probably say there's a guy named Jerome Weaver.
Okay.
He's based here in Atlanta. He runs a tournament called the Tip Off Classic. He has a company called Hoop Hustlers. Mm-hmm. Jerome runs, it's probably, he doesn't run like as far as like number of events. He runs this one event every year, but it's probably one of the best non-shoe independent. And when I say he gets all the shoe teams in this event, that's what happened. So like it's pretty much a Nike, Under Armour, Adidas showcase almost, because he gets all those teams and he gets a lot of independent teams in it as well.
What's his name again?
Jerome Weaver. He runs a company called Hoop Hustlers.
Cool.
And the event's called the Tip Off Classic. So he's probably one of the guys that I think. I mean, because he doesn't do more events, I think he kind of flies under the radar. But his event is definitely
phenomenal.
One of my favorite events for sure.
All right, so we're gonna do a little exercise at the end. So I want you to create your own front office organization, from top to bottom. So let's run through that real quick.
All right, so I'll just say I'm the owner. So I'll start as the owner. So I'll put myself in that position.
Okay.
That way I can keep it easy. I would say development guy, and you got me last time, so I'm going to do the right thing. Mark Edwards, one of my closest friends and mentors in the business, would be the player development coach for the team.
Yep.
The head coach would be David Vanderpool, who's the assistant with the Timberwolves, I believe, right now. The assistant GM would be, let's say Malik Rose. I'll make Malik Rose my assistant GM.
Okay.
My regional scout, I would say Thomas Scott. Thomas Scott was my roommate in Cleveland. He's the son of Byron Scott. Thomas is he works for the Big Three right now, but I think Thomas has a good eye for basketball. So I would say Thomas Scott was my regional scout.
I think he was with the Lakers before that too.
Yep, he was. Yeah. He was. Yep. My international scout would be Patrick Engelbert, who's the director of international scouting for the Raptors.
I think that's it. What
That's it.
owner what owner do you most like in the NBA? I guess is the best question.
Wow, that's a good question. I like well, I like Mark Cuban because he's definitely very passionate. I like Mark Cuban. What's the guy's name with Steve Ballmer? I like those two guys because of their passion, right?
Gotcha.
But on the other side, I like the what's the owners for the Miami Heat? What's their last names?
They own Amway. I'm trying to. Yeah, I know you're talking. Arisons.
Yeah, Arisons, the Arison family, because they're more so hands off. They hire the right people and they let them do their jobs. So
they let Pat Riley run everything.
They let Pat Riley run. And so I respect both sides of it. I respect the passion of Mark and Steve, but I like the fact that they just kind of like they're hands off and they kind of let their guys do their thing. And he's been successful at it. So I like those two guys the most. And I would probably, if I were ever an owner, I would try to probably mirror a little bit of both.
Yeah.
While being very passionate for my team, also allowing the people that I hire to do their jobs.
For sure. Yeah. Give me one kind of early takeaway from the bubble games. Have you been watching a lot of those games or no?
Yeah, I have. The biggest takeaway is TJ Warren.
He's been a bucket his whole life. I don't know why people are surprised by this.
But I think what it is because there's like, I think it's just the spotlight of it all. I agree with you. I definitely know that TJ's been a bucket, but like this different though. Like almost like 50 something, then some 30 pieces back to back. Like that's so TJ Warren's been the biggest takeaway. And then the Phoenix Suns, like just that, like
their offense is unbelievable. I mean, Booker has been really cooking. Last question: when did you knew that you had made it? And kind of what are your long-term goals?
I don't think that I have made it, to be honest. I think I carry around. I don't think I've done anything. And I say that with a grain of salt. You can take it with a grain of salt, but I feel like there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
And I think that there's it's exciting. It's exciting to be in it in the moment.
Yeah.
I think if I ever have the ability to kind of step back and look at it, I'll be definitely proud of what I've done so far. But I just think that there's still a lot more to go. So I don't think that I've made it.
Gotcha.
And the long-term goals are just to continue to grow and be successful. Whatever that looks like. I've always wanted to be a NBA GM. Like I wanted to run a team and be a decision maker for a team. But I think at the same time, I'm definitely comfortable in my skin now. I think just growing up and maturing a little bit more, like I wouldn't say no to that. I wouldn't say no to that, but at the same time, like if my business grows to where I think it could grow to, I would be perfectly fine.
Gotcha.
Doing that as well. And so I think more so it's just now like controlling the destiny, whatever it is, and just and being happy in the moment. Like being around basketball every day is just I'm elated. I'm so happy to kind of be around it, and even like being able to make my own decisions and like call shots, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's exciting to kind of do. It's nerve-wracking and frustrating at the same time, but I mean, I think that's any job that you like, but I wouldn't ask for anything else. I wouldn't.
For sure. So tell the people where they can find you on social media and your podcast name, because I really enjoy it too. So give yourself a shout out here.
So the podcast is called Attacking the Paint. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, anywhere else. I think it's on most podcast platforms. And you can find me on Instagram, or find us. I guess I can say us now. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at BTL Hoops. So like Instagram, Twitter, that's pretty much all I'm on. And you can follow, subscribe, and get involved, I guess.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Last thing, I really want to show Georgia some love because I mean I'm wearing the Michael Vick jersey. That's all I got from that area. But
for sure,
I mean, it is really cool to see all the high school talent that's coming up there.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. Mark Edwards was talking about the vitamin D from the sunshine. That theory was interesting though. I'm not gonna lie, but
It is.
you have the floor. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Well, you mentioned that, so I just actually I'm wearing my shirt right now. I got this shirt made the other day. It
Cool.
just says we hoop in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I know that I think it's definitely more popular now, but it's still kind of an afterthought, I think, overall. But I just we hoop here. I think we're definitely a basketball state just as much as anything else in the state.
Yeah.
And Atlanta produces. We've had McDonald's All-American, the lottery picks the past.
Yeah.
Last 10 years or so, we've had a lottery pick in McDonald's All-American in pretty much every year. So
I'm gonna ask you real quick before one last one. I lied.
Okay.
What's a kid that you're really high on right now from Georgia? He can be known or unknown.
Let's see. That's a tough. See, you're gonna get me in trouble. That's a really tough question because there are a lot of really good kids. Okay, so this is an easy one, and people are probably gonna be mad at me for saying this, but Jabari Smith Jr. I'm really high on him. And the cool thing is so my first weekend of getting into grassroots sports, I saw Jabari Smith Jr. I went to a local showcase camp.
Yeah.
And Jabari was a rising 10th grader at the time. And so to see in my first ever article, it's on my website. You go look at it. It was called the South Atlanta Showcase or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Jabari was one of the guys I wrote about, and to see him now as a rising senior and be a top 5 player in the country, and to see how he's evolved and matured in his game is just. I'm happy to say, I'm happy to say that I saw him first. Well, I can't say I saw him, but he was the first person that I saw when I started grassroots primarily.
Gotcha.
And then the flip side of it, the following weekend, this is the craziest story. The following weekend, I see Matthew Cleveland. Literally the next weekend, Matthew Cleveland. It was Matthew Cleveland. Same thing. So both of those guys are probably the guys that I'm high on. But there's so many guys in this state that are just really good basketball players that still we're producing a lot of basketball players per capita in the country, and there's so many to talk about. And I know that's people are gonna say, "Oh, that was lazy," but honestly, for me, they mean something because, like I said, those are the guys I saw first, and that's the true statement. The guys I saw first, and to see them now, 3 years later, to be where they are,
progress.
Matthew's with going to Florida State. Jabari's going to go wherever the hell he wants to go.
Yeah.
And so to see them now I'm just happy. I'm really high on those guys. I think those guys both have shots to be in the green room one day. I really believe that. So I'm
gonna get you in trouble one more time. The most underrated food spot in the area, and you can't say Magic City.
Okay. Wow. You know what? I'm not. You never been in trouble. My mama house. My mama house. My mom. This is. I will stand by this, and I will bet anybody money at any restaurant in this city, soul food wise, my mom can cook anybody under the table. No joke. But case in point, there's a buddy of mine. He's a scout from out in Vegas, and he's like, "Hey James, where can I get some soul food from?" I was like, "My mom." And so I literally. So it was last minute random. I was like, I literally tried to call my mom to see if she was cooking so I could take her to get some food. That's how serious I was.
Yeah.
More so than anywhere else. I was like, I will take you to my mother's house and she will make you a plate and you will be satisfied. And so that's my exit out of that one. My mother's food is the best food in the city by far. And if you come to Atlanta and you give me a heads up, I will guarantee you a plate for my mother, and you will second my vote. I promise.
Got you. Appreciate you coming on, brother. Great talking with you.
Likewise, man. Thanks for this. Talk to you soon.
All right.